Okay, so these are the ingredients you'll need. The recipe's on the Google Doc assignment, and it is Robert Irvine's French toast recipe, and he's that big buff guy who does, like, I don't know, some restaurant rescue show. And then, so what you need is cinnamon, and I've already measured all my stuff, nutmeg, just regular white sugar, some vanilla, a quarter cup of milk, and 4 eggs. And then whatever bread you have will work. I mean, like the only bread that maybe wouldn't work would be like you can't really use Hawaiian rolls, you can't really use hamburger buns, but if it's just regular bread, it'll work, okay? So don't kill yourself to get this kind. It's not the best, it's fine, okay? So let's crack our eggs. When you crack your eggs, you always want to make sure you have a second bowl handy for your shells. Don't just crack them and then not know what to do with this. So then you're going to mix all of our ingredients into the one bowl. Now notice the shape of my bowl. It's pretty flat. You could use a pie pan if you don't have a bowl with a flat bottom like this. You could also use like a square baking pan. Whatever you've got will work totally fine as long as it has a flat bottom. Like you can kind of see that mine does. Any of those mixing bowls we have at school would not work. So you would have to use a flat bottom baking pan. We're going to mix all this stuff in here. And then I'm going to go ahead and heat up my griddle. Now, this is just what I have at home. You could use a skillet. You could use a square griddle like the ones we have at school. If you have an electric one that you plug in, that would work great too. And mine is cast iron. You can see it's heavy and it takes a while to warm up. So I want to get it nice and hot before I put my first piece of French toast on it. So I'm going to warm this up first and then I'll come back and show you how to cook it. All right, so I've got my griddle nice and hot, and I melted butter to put on the griddle. The recipe calls for butter. You can use spray oil, you can use oil, you can use whatever you've got. But if you want to use butter, go for it. And this is a silicone brush, so it's a good brush to use on a hot surface like this. Don't get the griddle too hot, because if you do, you'll burn your bread. We're going to pull out the bread and put it in here one piece at a time. You want to make sure that you soak it for 10 to 20 seconds, not really super long time because you don't want it to get soggy. Just kind of move it around in there a little bit. Sometimes I poke it a little bit with the fork so it'll absorb better. And then you just pick it up. Try not to make a huge mess drizzling the stuff across the stove, and then set this onto your griddle. And this recipe says it makes about 8 slices of French toast. So you can add more if you want to make more batter if you have a bigger family, or less if you're a smaller family. You can half it or whatever. Usually it's about 2 pieces of bread per egg. So that's kind of how the recipes work for French toast. It's usually about 2 pieces of bread per egg. Ooh, that smells delicious. So I'm making breakfast all this week. Next week, we're going to do lunch. The week after that, if we're still, you know, in quarantine, we're going to do dinner. And who knows what's to follow? Maybe some desserts and candy. So I'm going to use this big spatula here. Now, I can use this, it's metal, and I can use it on my cast iron skillet because it won't scratch anything. But if you're using a non-stick pan, make sure you stick to using a plastic one so you don't scrape anything. And then you know it's ready to flip when the underside is nice and yummy looking like that, brown and delicious. And so then we're going to flip them over. And it took maybe 2 or 3 minutes to get it to the point where it was ready to flip. And then another 2 minutes or 3 minutes on this side, and then we'll be ready to serve. Okay, and now my lovely assistant is going to plate up our breakfast. So we're going to put 2 slices of bread on a plate. And then we have our beautiful bananas over there ready to go. Put some of your beautiful caramelized bananas on there, and then if you want to add anything like a little syrup or just anything that you like to eat yourself, go for it and enjoy your breakfast.